Welcome to the Sit Down, the ultimate weekly vlog series where the hottest topics in entertainment are acknowledged, discussed, and debated. This dynamic show dives deep into the world of music, comedy, film, and the business behind the spotlight. In each episode, we sit down with the artists, comedians, musicians, and industry insiders to talk trends, careers, controversies, and everything in between. From raw, unfiltered conversations to exclusive behind-the-scenes stories, the Sit Down is where you want to get the insider scoop. No fluff, no filters, just real talk. Whether you're an inspiring artist, a pop culture junkie, or just here for the laughs, this is a show you don't want to miss. New episodes drop every week, so pull up, tune in, and get in on the conversation.
Well. Yeah, I have my good friend and longtime buddy, Mr. Cole Porter, on with us today.
Yeah, I remember back
And
in the old days.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. I met you when you were at KYS, I think, man.
That's
WKYS in Washington, D.C.
that's right.
You were going pretty strong there, man. And
Yeah,
wow, we just kicked it off. The synergy was there, and
yeah.
we made things happen,
But we
man.
had something in
And
common though, because we were both Marines, and that's how we actually met. We met, yeah, in at the unit, and I just happened to be working at
that's right.
WKYS at the same time. So that's that
That's
was
right. That's
interesting.
right. Anacostia.
Yeah, yeah,
Anacostia Supply Company in Washington, D.C.,
that's right. That's right.
Marine Unit, where we met. And you just happened to be working at WKYS as, were you promotions
I
manager
was
there?
I started off. It was interesting because when I got out of the Marine Corps, when I came home, I saw this TV commercial that said, "Be on the radio. Call this number now, 1-800-5244," and it said, "You too could be on." It was a radio broadcast school. In fact, it was Columbia Broadcasting in Arlington. So I said, "Let me do that." I went, did the class, did the whole thing, passed it, and saw an internship at WKYS. And it was interesting because my teacher at the time was a guy named Joel Deering, and he had encouraged me to go try to get the internship at KYS, and I never did follow through. I went and I dropped my resume off, but I never went back. And I remember 2 weeks later, he asked me, he said, "How did the interview go with KYS?" And I go, I don't know. I didn't hear anything. He said, "What do you mean you didn't hear anything?" I said, "Well, I dropped it off, but I didn't hear anything." He said, "Did you follow up? Did you call? Did you stop by? Did you say something?" I said, "I ain't say a word." He went, pow, slapped me upside my head. He said, "How in the hell you know they even got it?" And I go, "I don't know."
The good
So
old Marine Corps
yeah,
way, huh?
he sure did. So I called, and a young lady named Alma Brown, who was the what was she doing? She wasn't the promotion director. She was the um, uh, well, something like promotions. She was doing,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I
she was
remember
the one.
Alma Brown.
Yeah, she was the one
Right,
hiring
right.
interns. And I asked her, I said,
Yeah,
"Did you
yeah.
get my resume?" She said, "No, I don't even know who you are. I never heard of you." And I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Can I come by and drop it off in your hand?" And that started everything. That started literally a 25-year career in radio. Because when I dropped it off in her hand,
Wow.
I kind of looked like her son. We were around the same age and everything, and she kind of absorbed me like that. And she gave me the internship, which led to a part-time job, which led to a full-time job, which led to my first directorship. And then it was Katie bar the door after that.
History,
Yeah,
history, history,
yeah,
history.
yeah.
Wow, wow. So, so at WKYS, what were, some of the things that inspired you there? I mean, you were out in the field, right? You actually promoted the radio station as a person, as the face of WKYS out at their events, sporting events, and different things like that, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I was the promotion intern first, and the promotion assistant promotion coordinator. All right, then the promotion
right,
coordinator, and then from there on up. But yeah, that job was interesting because you had to put on a lot of hats. You had to be able to set up the broadcast and get everything ready for the DJs. In this case, Donnie Simpson was the main man. So a lot of times when we set up these big events, the person who actually did the work was me and my crew. So that was quite
right.
interesting, and you learn a lot from that because you're watching guys who are doing things that you want to do in the future. I mean, as a kid, I grew up listening to WKYS and OK100 and all those stations in the Washington D.C. area, but I never thought I would be actually making it happen while there. That was incredible.
That was incredible, man. I remember those days. I remember the KYS van
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
seen around town. I was like, "Whoa, that's Cole Porter and his
yeah.
crew."
I'm the one driving around. Yeah, I was a young guy then, though.
That's right. So, okay. So then you went to, was it WBLS in Baltimore?
No, that was WWIN, which turned into Magic 95.9. And it's interesting how I got that job because we were one of the first stations to do a major promotion in another city, WKYS was.
Okay.
So we were doing a big event that was called AFRAM inside of, that was the Baltimore Big Deal back in the day. So KYS was one of
Right.
the first DC stations to actually plug into that. And the promotion director at the time, a guy named Rob Ferguson, he knew the promotion director for WWIN, and we would
Right.
go and do these promotions. But I was assisting him, but I met the promotion director there, and I remember one day she called me out of the blue and she said, "Hey, you don't remember me?" Her name was Jackie. She said, "I'm." I said, "Yeah, I do remember you, Jackie. Absolutely, promotion director for WWIN." She said, "Well, I'm leaving the station, and I'm gonna recommend you for the job. Are you interested?" And I said, yeah, because then I go from promotion coordinator to my first directorship, and I went, and that's where I met a guy named Bob Woodward, which you know, and the rest again is history.
History, history, history.
Yeah,
That's how it works, man. That's how it works. Wow. So at least at this station now, you were able to parlay your duties, I guess you would say, from not only just promotion to on air, right?
yeah. I got an opportunity to. There was a slot open for a Sunday afternoon show, and they wanted to do jazz, and I said, well, I can do it. I like the music and everything, but I remember starting off using my real name, and after a few months, it didn't work. I mean, people would call, show up, all this stuff. And one incident happened one day in Baltimore. This is in the fall. After I got off the show, it was from 10 to 2 in the morning, 10 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. I went home, and this girl knocked on the door. I mean, this is like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm sitting there in my drawers on, watching the football games in the fall, and I looked at the little peephole and everything. Who the hell is this? Come to the house. It's a nice looking lady. I opened the door. I put my
Right,
clothes on, obviously. Opened the door, and she was standing there with a big coat and her drink in her hand. A drink. I thought it was water. I found out later it was vodka. But she said, "Are you such and such?" And my real name, and I said yes. And she said, "I like the show, blah blah blah." I said, "Oh, okay, this is a person, a fan or whatever." And I thought she was there to see somebody else in an apartment because it was one of those apartments where you go in the building and then go up and you can go left or right or
right,
whatever. So she stood there for a
right.
second, and then all of a sudden she took her coat and dropped it off, and she was butt naked. Now my first thought was, wait a minute, hold up here, lucky me, blah blah blah. Then I said, no, this could be a setup. So I pulled it in my apartment, and I smelled her alcohol, threw it away, gave her some water, and gave her the speech. I told her, look, you can't do this, blah blah blah. You shouldn't. This is a wrong move. I could have took advantage of you. She started crying. I said, how'd you know it was me anyway? She said, I just looked up in the phone book. Back then, the phone book was there. She said, you
Boy,
just,
yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
She
That's
said,
right.
your address is right there. And she
Right.
lived down the road. And I said, wow. So the next day, I went back and told the CEO of the station at that time, was Alfred Liggins. And he said, no, no,
Yep.
no. He said, you can't use your real name. You got to change your name. You're doing jazz. From now on, your name is Cole Porter. I said, with a K? He said, yes. He said, use it for life. And that's how I got the name.
Wow, wow, that's something. So that's like
Yeah.
the birth, Cole
That was the
Porter.
birth. Yeah,
Wow,
that was the birth. Yeah,
that's amazing.
that was the
That
birth.
is amazing.
And from that point, everywhere
That
I've been, that's what it's been.
that's what you been, Captain Cole Porter.
Well, that came from the military thing. So,
Well, we
yeah,
just kind of abbreviate it all and put it together. And now, what was the name of the show, though? I mean, the jazz show was with Captain Cole Porter, wasn't it?
it was called the Sunday Jazz Brunch. Sunday Jazz Brunch with Captain Cole Porter. Yes.
There you go. That's
Yep.
what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So the,
Wow,
the,
wow,
the
wow.
unique
So
thing
how did
about
that?
it,
How was that? How were you received into a arena that people had never heard of Captain Cole Porter? Um, did it take some type of special powers that you did to actually get yourself known
well, there was
and
two
I
things.
guess
Two
okay,
things. Two things.
go ahead.
One, they allowed me to do self promotion. Okay, unlimited self
Okay,
promotion, and I think I'm pretty good at that. So for me, being the promotion director at the same time, obviously I'm plugging my own show along with the radio station, first and foremost. But the other thing was that made the station or made the show unique was it wasn't programmed, meaning I did the programming myself based on how I felt at the time. So I got a chance to expose a lot of artists that you wouldn't normally hear. I mean, they're not in the top 10, they're not on a billboard or anything like that, but these were guys and girls who either lived in Baltimore or lived in D.C. that were doing things there, and I got a chance to play their stuff, which the people in Baltimore loved because they weren't hearing the same thing over and over again. It wasn't the same old, okay, here's another jazz show. They're going to play the top 5 guys, and no, I would play guys that you never heard of. A lot of things at times I would call other people that I knew in different cities and ask them, who's the local jazz guy with the CD that's really good, and they would send it to me. I'd play it, introduce it, and it was golden. It really was.
Wow, wow, wow. That's okay. Yeah, that's a golden point right there for anybody who's interested in going that route, and that's what I'm trying to capture here is what are some of the things that would inspire someone to, first of all, they're already inspired because they want to get into the industry,
Right.
but some of those golden tips that give them the insight as to, how to get started, how to maximize their marketing effort, that sort of thing. Now, thinking back and then looking at what we have now as far as marketing tools, um, would you say that there's a difference now in how you have to approach that?
Well, it would be a lot easier for someone. I mean, when I started, there was no internet or anything like that. You had to get on the ground and do it. It was a face-to-face deal. Now you can say something and a million people can see it, but you're also competing with a million other people at the same time. So you have to do something unique to stand out. What is different about you? I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that like jazz, or let's say rap music. Everybody's a rapper. So what's the difference between
Right.
you and the next guy? You have to do something unique to you.
Okay, okay. So you're branding yourself at the same time,
Absolutely.
pretty much. So because that uniqueness fits into your brand, and that's what people identify you by.
Correct. Correct. That's exactly where it all starts
Right.
at. Yes, exactly right. It's a
That's
it's a
awesome.
hard thing though because again, you're competing with a lot of other people and there'll be failure first before you reach any kind of pinnacle at all. But once you make that first step, you understand what you did before, you won't make the same mistakes in the past and you'll be able to elevate yourself beyond that.
That's awesome, man. That's good news. That's good news right there because everybody fails the first start.
Absolutely.
You can't come out of the starting gate and go from 0 to 100 just overnight.
Right.
Nobody does that. Nobody does. I mean, let's think about, you said Donnie Simpson. Look at Donnie Simpson. He started as, I think his parents owned a
Records, yeah,
record
in,
store
in Detroit,
in
yes.
Detroit.
Hmm.
Right. So he was basically working in the record store and, kind of cut his teeth amongst the folks there that gave him the inspiration, I guess, to go into radio and then into TV and, become a national phenomenon.
Yeah, he had obviously he had the flavor. He had the flavor for it and did an excellent job. So you see, I mean, no one starts off at the top. Someone has to start off. You start off at
Right.
the bottom somewhere, and you work your way up. But you have to have the drive, and he obviously had the drive because you see the success that he attained. So that was good.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's talk about radio abroad. How is that different than radio here in the States? Because you had the opportunity to work in the Cayman Islands, which I would think would be maybe a different approach, a different flavor. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Well, that was totally unique because that was from scratch. I mean, basically, that was a guy in the Cayman Islands who had a lot of money, who wanted three United States type radio stations at this little small island. The island had like 8 radio stations already, so he wanted 3 more, but he wanted them 3 different formats. So what he did was he called a broker in New York, who called Bob Woodward, who called me and a guy named Mark, and we all came down and built those radio stations from scratch based on the idea and the goals that the owner wanted to attain at the time. So for them, it was utterly unique. And I'll give you an example of this, give you a real example. So before we got there, they had never given away a CD or anything like that on the radio. That was like, huh? Impossible. And so what I did was I called some favors in from Dallas. My friend Chris Reynolds in Dallas. He sent me whole piles of stuff to give away. Supplied me with these things. In exchange, of course, we had to put some trips together for them to come down and give away for their listeners and stuff. But that was unique because here's a radio station for the first time down there doing more than just playing music. We're doing events. We're bringing down international artists, in this case from the United States. We're giving away CDs and T-shirts and money and all these things that they had never done before. So for them, it was a blow-away situation.
So that was actually got yeah that was kind of a catapult, if you will, into that market down there because you were bringing uniqueness
Absolutely.
from something that they've never had before, and then you were building it from ground up. So you had an opportunity to create that flavor, if you will, and then present it uh, as part of that uniqueness. And it, how long did it take for you guys to really get that up and going?
About 2 years. And I'll tell you, that was in 2004, and it's 2025, and it's still there. All three radio stations are still there going strong. So
Wow,
that's a
wow, wow.
legacy. I mean, I haven't been to the
Yeah.
Caymans in a while, but if I go down there and to see that, I know that when I got there, it was a grass field. Now there's a building,
Hmm.
and now there's people there that's been working there for a long time, and they've changed over like anywhere else. But they don't know me. If they don't realize if I walk in the lobby, there's one of the guys who actually started this whole thing 25 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we all know who the legacy was,
Yeah,
and it was Porter and Woodward, I'll call it.
something like that. Something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a
All
hard
right.
thing to do. It's something that if you get a chance to do something like that in your life, then I would recommend it. I mean, most guys would rather stay in Chicago or Dallas or something, and they got their hands clean, and it's a cycle for them. They're making a lot of money, so why leave that?
Hmm.
So for me, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, at a great radio station, a group down there, and I got the phone call, hey, guess where I'm at now? Here's a big opportunity to do something that no one's ever done before, and we did it.
Awesome, awesome. So you went from let's talk in terms of market, I guess. So Washington is, if I'm not mistaken, it's a medium market.
No, it's a major market. It's top 10.
It's a major market.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you went from a major market to a medium market, or is that how do they do that? Do they combine Baltimore, Washington together,
No,
or
no, they don't.
uh, so
Washington's a
that's
single
major to
deal.
medium, right?
So Baltimore gets considered it's medium, but on the high end. It's not in the top 10. It's in
Right.
the top 20 though.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. And so then you went to another medium market, which was Charlotte, right?
No, went to outside of Metro Detroit. It was in
Right.
Flint, Michigan, of all places, and then that's a small market. That's a small market, but
Right.
that was
Okay.
like Cowboy City. It was wide open. I mean, literally, we had to restaff everybody and retool the whole thing. So that was another opportunity. So for me, I tell people my career actually was backwards. I started off at one of the biggest stations in the country and went down to one of the smallest. But
Yep.
at every level that I went to, it was more responsibility. I had more of the ability to shape what was going on than I did obviously at KYS. I mean, I couldn't. I was the guy driving the van and
Right.
setting up things and learning these things. But by the time I finished the career, I'm writing policy basically
Right. Right.
for the
So
marketing end.
okay. So going from those different markets, and then you're in Detroit, and then you go to Charlotte, and then you end up in Buffalo. So Buffalo's market is probably a little different than all the other ones that you've just mentioned. I would assume because the market was well. Let me let you tell about it
Well, it's
because
actually it's actually similar to the Flint market, meaning it's very
okay.
homegrown. It's a station that's been there for 40 years, and all the people that listen to the station, they grew up with the station. That's their station, and it's not a lot of competition. I mean, in Buffalo, there's only probably two African American stations, and that's it. Where in DC, you got seven or six, depending on where
Oh,
you're going. And if you're living in
right.
DC, you can get the Baltimore stations too. Now you got 10, of the same type format. So in the Flint market, it's one, and in the Buffalo market, it's technically two, but one big one. You got one big FM station and a couple of little FMs or AMs that don't really count. So there you're falling into a situation where people see you as an outsider in the beginning. They see you as an outsider. Here you come in here to shake things up. We've had this
Yep.
one DJ here since 1950, and he's been doing the same thing over and over and over again, and we're coming to shake it up. And the reason you have to shake it up is because you got to remember this whole thing is about for profit. These people are making money, and if you're not competing, you're not getting advertising dollars. You're not getting advertising dollars. You don't have a radio station. But no radio station,
That's
had no job. So you can't
right. Yeah.
you can't be on the laurel of the same thing they were doing back in 1950. So we made a lot
Right.
of
Right.
changes to it.
Okay. Yeah, it brings up a good point. You talked about advertising dollars, right? So, in terms of now, you might or might not know the answer to this. I don't know, but I'm going to throw it out there. In terms of uh, the market of advertisers as opposed to the market of listeners, how do you appease both when you're on a market where they might be different? The listeners might be different than the advertisers that are keeping the station afloat because of the money they're bringing in.
Well, that's where the challenge come in. You know what a seesaw is, right? It's a you teeter back and forth. The balance
Yeah.
when we were kids, you balance on this thing. You're supposed to balance it. That's the key. So you had advertisers who wanted certain things on the radio. They wanted certain advertisements to run, and we don't run these type things. Or vice versa. Listeners didn't want to hear certain commercials, but those commercials would run because they were paying a lot of money. And there's one good example. I remember in Flint, there was one of our AEs, account executives, a white lady, love her to death, older lady. She came to me one day and said, "Can we do a promotion?" Now she's a saleswoman. She's put the advertising on, which had nothing to do with programming now. But the program director has a right to veto a spot if it doesn't make sense for the radio station. She wanted to put a spot on from the Ku Klux Klan. And I'm thinking, I don't think that's going to work on an African American related radio station. I just don't think it's going to work. And she said, well, why not? I mean, they're not talking about lynching people. They're talking about something else. I go, but the idea of putting that on there, and remember, these people think this is their radio station. They don't see it as an entity to make money in it. This is their homegrown information station. If something goes wrong in the community, the radio station's there to help. That's how they see that. So
Well,
we
that's
had
how
to
you
veto that.
promote it too, right?
Right, that
You
is how I promote
promoted
it.
it.
Yes,
This is
yes,
your station.
yeah. You promote it as a community thing, when in
Right.
actuality it's not. It's owned by some corporation, by usually a bunch of guys who have nothing to do with it. They just as long as you keep bringing in the flavor of listeners, every quarter, and you see the book comes out. They call it the book, the ratings book, and as long as that is up where it's supposed to be, then they can tell their advertisers, hey, look, we have the majority of people who can listen to radio listen to this radio station, so you should buy us, because if you're buying a spot at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's 400,000 people listening to your spot. That's a great thing, right? Yeah, that's what we want. Versus a radio station that got 2,000 people, listening at the same time. So that's the balance you come in. So if we put that spot on there, how many listeners do you think we'd have? They'd be jumping ship.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Okay, man. Well, we're almost to the end of our sit down here,
no
but
problem.
one thing I want to throw at you though, and let me see if I can jar your memory a little bit. Uh, Promoting a country western event.
Promoting a country western event.
Did you
That
not promote a country western event somewhere? Was it that?
Oh, in Buffalo,
Was it
we had a
Buffalo?
we had a country station, YRQ, and
Right.
they were the number one in the market, by the way. I mean, over all stations, they were always number one. But what we would do is, just because I'm promoting the urban station, all the promotion directors, is four of us with each radio station. We always would help someone else. But yeah, you get a whole different flavor there. Instead of booty shakers and stuff like that, you get cowboys and stirs and stuff. So that was quite interesting. But see, the money is there though. The money they were making were far surpassing what we were doing on that level. So yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
So was the approach different though than you would promote, say, R&B or
Slightly,
whatever, or
slightly,
yeah.
yes.
So I mean, up at at the 10,000 foot level, it's probably all the same. But when you get down into the actual uh, venue itself, the patrons and the such, Is there anything different that you had to do in
Yes,
terms of that?
it's less emotional with the countryside, meaning when you're promoting an urban station, the spot itself is all about stirring an emotion to get you to act. And it's the same thing on any spot, event spot, but it's different with the country boys because all you need to do is talk about when and where and who and how you get your ticket. On the urban side, you need to talk about basically why you need to get that ticket, why it's imperative that you need to be there because if you're not there, you're going to miss something. That's not really the same on the countryside. You don't really have to go that far on that. But because you're talking about different numbers of people too. I mean, in Western New York, it's a way bigger audience number-wise than it is on the urban side. Even though they're both large, if you ask me like, okay, exactly how many numbers are you talking about? Well, let's say it's 150,000 people that on the countryside, and it's about 65,000 on the urban side. So if you got the same venue that hosts 5,000 people, it's going to be a lot easier to fill that with that country side of the house because they have more people to choose from. So that's where it is. Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, listen, man. Wow, this was amazing. I really appreciate you coming on board, man.
Anytime.
Doing the sit down. The information is impeccable, man. I mean, the viewers that watch this video, they'll get a lot of information from this, and I really appreciate you coming on. Maybe we can have you back sometime, man,
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
good with
And
it.
let me congratulate you on doing this too, because this is the kind of thing that whatever discipline and whatever guest you have, any information they can impart, they need to have this in a real sense, without the fluff and the weirdness and all that kind of stuff. And I know you're not going to allow somebody to sit up here and tell a lie. So you congratulate yourself for putting this on.
Well, thank you, man. And my goal is to keep it to the facts. That we
Right.
sat down, we talked about facts here,
Yeah.
and that's the information that people can use. I mean, they can get enough of the Hollywood stuff just by social media or whatever.
Right.
This is geared towards the facts for people to get a good understanding of what the industry is about. Our guests are going to be that type of caliber. They're going to bring value to what we're sitting down about,
Correct.
and they're going to have the experience in order to talk about that.
Yes.
So yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and we hope to see you again soon.
Simplify.
Simplify, do or die.